Founders Live is the global venue for modern entrepreneurs, especially during these very challenging times. The direct impact of COVID-19 is currently being felt around the world, and it could get worse before it gets better. We are here to help you through these challenging times by connecting you to the people, information, and resources meant to move you forward as you start your next project.
We see an opportunity to bring the resources and capital and connections to the people that need it and the people that can use it, no matter where they live in the world. My honest opinion is, no matter what the economic climate is in the world, Founders Live can be important. In the good times, when it's booming, we're here to help grow companies and have them access capital that's flowing around the world and really be a fun, great event and global platform that powers entrepreneurship. In the tough times, we actually think we can be the answer, given the fact that if people are actually getting laid off and unemployment starts rising, well, the choice to start their own business is front and center, and Founders Live is right there to help them grow. I believe the secret sauce of Founders Live lies in the combination of these three words: inspiration, education, and entertainment. Inspiration is rooted in the energy and the passion that every single attendee has. The education is the information that we're bringing to people that they otherwise couldn't find. Founders Live Online helps solve entrepreneurs' daily challenges. If you have a question that you're just wondering, like, I don't know what to do here, you simply need to just type it into Founders Live and someone else will answer it right there for you. And the entertainment is the fun. We believe business should be fun, we believe it should be casual, and we believe it should be inspirational. Founders Live is the perfect place for you to connect with other entrepreneurs and to be inspired.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hacktable. So this is our 6th workshop, and this is going to be a keynote by Nick Hughes. He's the CEO and founder of Founders Live, and he will talk more about that.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to give a talk and then answer questions. Hopefully you all have some questions that I would love to dive into. So pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you too. And you can take it away.
All right. Well, excited. Yeah, thank you all. And yeah, there's my slides. Going to walk through some stuff. It's a pleasure to be here, everyone. You know, I am again the founder and CEO of Founders Live. And I just want to share some thoughts of really, you know, just the entrepreneurial journey and really just tips to think about as you are getting going. It's an interesting, fun road, challenging at times as well. So I just want to touch on that. You know, first, before we get started, just a little bit about myself. You know, my name is Nick Hughes. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started a few projects and startups in the past. Nothing to the extent of now Founders Live, but I do have experience starting projects and startups. I've participated in a few hackathons myself, so I know exactly what you're going through. And then, you know, as an advisor and mentor to other founders, I do enjoy helping other founders out and taking, you know, seats as an advisor or a mentor, if that's something that's of interest. And also as a founder and CEO of Founders Live, touching on that real quick, you know, we have built a global platform for entrepreneurship, you know, and a global platform also for these pitch competitions that are 99-second pitches. We have 5 companies. They each have 99 seconds to pitch. It's a really cool competition. There's a winner that comes out of them. You know, I started it in Seattle in 2014, and now we've spread across the world. We reached about almost 60 cities, 30 to 40,000 people around the world, and thousands of startups. It's been really fun. I will detail a few thoughts on my experience here coming up, but just wanted to give you a little bit of perspective on myself. The 3 things I want to cover are really around thinking big, experiment, and also youth as an advantage, and we'll touch on those. But just a brief story, you know, a background of myself as I went through this process and a journey growing up. And I want you to know that, coming out of high school into college, business and technology was not actually my first love or first thought of what I was going to do in my life. I was an athlete growing up, and I studied nothing in necessarily in business and technology. I actually studied human physiology, and I realized as an athlete, if I was not going to be a professional athlete, I wanted to work with professional athletes. And so as I graduated from university, from college, I had a degree, and that really helped me work with athletes. I trained them. I was what you would call a strength coach and a professional in that industry, and really kind of hit that high level early of working with high level performance athletes and people. And really just started to understand that as I was working with athletes, and then also general population, that I just had this, something was tugging at me, and I wanted to impact people on a larger stage and around the world. And so, after I graduated and I was in that profession for a while, I started to do self-study. And this is part of the key of this talk as well, as I chose to educate myself in areas of technology and areas of business. And so I was, reading Business Week back in the day. This was a little while ago, but, reading Business Week online, reading TechCrunch a lot. I felt like I was addicted to that. But also I started to read quite a few books that gave me a more business and innovation mind. But that wasn't something I learned in class in university. There's a difference. When you choose to learn it yourself, you're actually taking ownership of your growth and your education. And that was something that I just did. I tried to find books that I saw that were interesting, that would help me in leadership and business. And it worked. And so roughly at about age 30, actually. So, for you all that are out there, you're probably like, wow, that's kind of old. But, in my 20s, I was really like working in that other industry. And then I made that jump. And about 30 years old was actually when I just up and quit my last full-time job outside of the tech and startup world, and really made that leap. And so, the first main point I want to put in place here is to think big. And, thinking big is something that, until you really start to understand how big you can actually build things, or how far and vast you can go, you might be limiting yourself. And just the concept of thinking big, think about the world. Some of you might be on the other side of the world. I'm on the West Coast of the United States. I'm in the Seattle area. And, just the fact that we're here, and just the fact that, we're interacting, and you might be on the other side of the world, is something to really consider. And so I want to tell you, number one, think big. You are limited only by your own thinking and your beliefs. So this weekend, when you're hacking on something, really start thinking about, okay, what could we really do here? Like, how far could we take this project? How far could we impact people? And it's possible. I'm telling you, it's possible, because I started Founders Live in Seattle in 2014, and it was really actually just, it was a gathering. And you're obviously gathering online right now, but back in the good old days when we could gather in person, that's what we did. Is on a Friday night in Seattle, Washington, we got people together. We had a fun event. We had a pitch competition, and 5 companies that pitched, and one came out as a winner. And I was like, oh wow, that was really interesting. That was fun. Kept holding that event monthly in Seattle for like 2 years, and it just started to take form. And what started in Seattle, you'll notice all those dots around the world. Literally, what I created in Seattle as a concept, as a company, as a brand, has spread to pretty much every continent. And that is something that is fascinating to me, actually. And you can take just the small project, the small idea that you might be hacking on this weekend, and trust me, it can impact people that you've never met. It can impact people around the world, and you can put something together that really does change the world. And so you can see that, by thinking big, by I had a choice of either, hey, should this just be something in Seattle, or no, could we actually really influence and educate and inspire people around the world. In Africa, you see, like, there's people in Africa that Founders Live impacts and changes their life. There's people in other parts of Asia, and all that. So it's absolutely fascinating. Also thinking big, I just want to mention, this was a really fun experience. In 2019, I took actually a world tour and traveled around the world, living in Founders Live cities, about a month at a time. So you see those numbers on the map basically correlate to the months of the year. And I traveled around, lived in these cities, worked with our teams, met our people, and really met the users and actually our leaders, our city leaders that work with us, that run the events locally in those cities and regions. I lived on the road, and I traveled around, and I traveled almost 70,000 miles. And you can see that I went to, not only around the United States, but went to the UK, spent a month on the continent of Africa. And then December of that year, last year, about a year ago right now, I was in Argentina and South America. And, by thinking big, by expanding my mind, saying, you know what, not only are creating something that impacts people around the world, I'm actually going to pack my bags and I'm going to go there and meet them. And it was an absolutely life-changing experience to see the people that physically in real life, see the people that what my company has done is impacting their life, and meeting these people and interacting with our users. And so I would encourage you to, on the side note, look at how you can actually travel the world when it becomes safer again. It's something that you'll never, ever regret. So think global, but start incremental. That's really, not only think big, but really start. You can think big, but you have to think also incrementally. As you notice, I started it in Seattle, tested out for like 2 years, and saw a formula take shape. And then we just started launching and expanding to new cities. And so that's part of what I'm going to talk about next. But I want to ask you, what would you do if anything was possible? And I think that could be almost a trite statement. You've probably heard that in movies. You've probably heard that people say that, but what would you do if anything was possible? I think that's something to really consider, even when you're hacking on something this weekend. So start small, figure out a formula that works, and then scale. And if you're technical, I want to touch on this real quick. Some of you there might be a lot of people that are more technical than maybe business oriented. And I would say connect with someone who knows business. And trust me, as you are highly technical, there are people that are highly business and not technical, and it makes a great team. And so one thing that I've come across with a lot of our startups and companies that have pitched around the world is you find an optimal team tends to be, not to say that this is the only solution, but when you have one person that's much more tech oriented, like the developer, you're coding, you're the one that's really building that product. There's another person that is much more visual design, or what we would call UX, user experience. And then there's someone that really kind of more understands business and marketing. What's the pricing model? How are we going to go to market? How are we going to get this in front of people and grow? That is an optimal team when you look at those three individuals, and that might be something that you're forming this weekend as well. So the second thing I want to touch on is experiment. This is a huge, huge concept. I want you to really fully understand it. Some of you might have heard this before, but the process of experimentation when you're putting together a project is so important. So I would suggest that this is the equation that you want to at least look at and follow as you're not only hacking together this weekend through this hackathon, but as you roll out a product as well. So the first stage is ideate. So it's like, okay, and you might have done this already this weekend. What do we want to do? What is the idea? What do we want to solve? Is there a problem out there? And so you're really searching for, like, is there problems in the world that we want to solve? What sort of idea are we putting together? There might be another one that I'm missing here, but kind of build, right? But that's kind of almost assumed at this point. But once you build it, you launch it, you get it out there. And the key is you get it out, you get something out as soon as possible. Why is that? Because then you can test. You can test it in the real world, as opposed to spending 6 months a year building in the room and then bringing something out and seeing if people like it. You actually ideate and hack together something and test it, get it launched and test quickly. Why is that? Because you learn, you get response. Do people actually use the product? Are we actually getting some sales from it? By learning, then you can iterate. And basically what that means is take what you've learned that's working and keep doing that, drop what's not working, and move forward. So ideate, launch something, test it, keep testing it, learn from those tests, and then iterate on what you've learned. That is a great equation to bring something to market. I also want to mention here, and whether you all are coding and you're technical, this is something to understand whether you are using code or not. There are now tools and apps out there to really build your version 1.0. What does that mean? That means that you can pull other, like from APIs or other applications, you can pull things together that actually achieve what you're trying to achieve. And you can do that in obviously a weekend like this weekend, but you can do that very quickly. This is something different than 10, 20 years ago where it took a lot longer you would have to really build all your stuff. Well, use the APIs that are out there, use those things, and even look up the no code movement, because there might be things that you want to pull from that. There's applications like Airtable, there's applications like Stacker, things of that nature. You want to look in how can we utilize these things to get maybe it's a 0.5 version, but at least get your minimum viable product, which we call an MVP, get that out there as soon as possible. Why? Because you want to run this equation, right? Don't waste your time. Get something out there and run that equation. More importantly, don't be afraid. Failure is part of it. And it actually is the only way to find out what works. I would say that this is something that it's important at your age to fully understand. Just take failure and put it in its place and say, well, we are going to fail until we find something that succeeds. And so going back to experiment. This is probably the key thing that I want you to take away from this. I'll keep iterating on those ideas. It's a part of the experience. And as you hack together things this weekend, just understand that, okay, this is our process this weekend. We're hacking together. How do we experiment on it? What are we looking for in that experiment? And then what is success? And when we find that, even just those little data points, okay, follow that and why it worked or why it didn't. Okay, so experiment. I would say the last one here in this short talk is around youth being an advantage. And I want to address this because you might still be in high school. You might be earlier in college, or maybe you're about to graduate college, but your youth is absolutely an advantage. And I want to address that because you have so much little to lose and so much more to gain when you are in your younger years, and especially when you're looking to build things. And this is kind of me talking to my much younger self and looking at that and saying, geez, when you're still in your teens or your early 20s, you haven't built up all this essentially risk and reward, right? So when you're young, the reward is so high and the risk is very low. What am I talking about here? Well, the risk of you have so many things you can go try and do, and you can test and experiment, and the rewards are very high because you if you stumble upon something earlier on and it starts to work, well, geez, you've got so many years ahead of you to build that company and grow, and you also don't have things that have tied you down. So when you're young, the reward is so high and the risk is so low. That's the advantage of being young, right? And reverse this, okay? So when you're older, whether it's in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, the risk and reward gets flipped actually. And why is that? Well, it's because you've been living, right? You have kids. You might have a house that's a house payment. You might have an existing job. And ironically, the longer someone works at a job, the more they're kind of emotionally tied to that, and they want to hold on to it, and they're not willing to actually jump to an opportunity. You might have less energy as you grow older. And then life just happens, right? So the risks are so much more, they're higher as you continue to grow older, whether that's 20s, 30s. Trust me, they're there. So, I would encourage you to absolutely, jump on this path, commit to it, and understand that, especially as you're young, it's an actual tremendous advantage. And I'm saying this only because my guess is that if you're trying to build something, you might get resistance, from people, from family, or even like on trying to get attention from other people to join you, or investors, or making a sales pitch, trying to get either investment or revenue as you're selling your product, and they might actually come down on you because they think that you're young. And I would just say that that is something that you can turn around. Okay, so especially younger individuals, we see trends and the things that are cool much earlier than others. Clearly, you look at all the apps that are, especially social apps now that are out there. You're seeing these things much earlier. You're using these things much earlier. So you actually have much more direct intelligence that the older individuals and business people are looking for. That is an advantage. You know this. You see what's happening. You see what's growing. So use that to your advantage. So my final thoughts here, and then we can just jump into questions. I encourage you to start asking questions. Would love to just chat. I would rather kind of chat than give a one directional talk here. But my final thoughts are, look, I don't have any regrets here. I love what I do. I love building Founders Live. I meet entrepreneurs every day from around the world, literally different continents. And my only regret is I didn't start sooner on this entrepreneurial path. As you heard earlier, I had a previous career, and then about 30 years old was when I fully jumped in. And this is kind of why I was talking about the risk reward thing. If I would have started at your age, imagine if I would have really actually started Founders Live at the age of 18 or 20, kind of impossible to do back in that day yet. But when I think about it, that's my only regret, is if I could have started a little earlier than I did. Don't ever let someone tell you that you can't do something. That's huge. I've heard it many times. Oh, good luck on that, or people doubting me and all that. But just don't hear it. They might say it, but don't let them ever tell you you can't do something, because I can tell you that you can. Trust your gut and your instincts. You, like I said earlier, in terms of like seeing the trends, your gut tells you. I want you to listen to that. I want you to follow that thing that's telling you inside, like, maybe we should build this. We see some things here that could be improved. Trust that and follow it, and just listen to the world, and it will tell you the next steps to take. And if age is an issue with getting business people's attention, I'm just going to tell you, just keep knocking on that door, keep asking, and keep growing. What I mean is keep growing your app, keep growing your product. Growth and seeing that traction meaning people are using it, or people are jumping on and sharing it to others. You're seeing your metrics increase and grow. If you keep doing that, they will answer. So if you're making noise in the market, if you're doing something that they're seeing it's actually making impact, just keep knocking on that door and they will answer it. And also, hey, just know that it takes time. This is a long road. I would like to be able to say, hey, yeah, hack on this product and hack, this hackathon, you're going to release something and you're going to get 100,000 or 1 million users next week. I would hope that maybe that happens, but I can tell you that most likely it doesn't. This is a long path, okay? It takes time, so be committed to the journey. For me, I'm committed to this life. I'm committed to being an entrepreneur. I'm committed to doing a lot of things, but one thing is committed to growing Founders Live and impacting people around the world and building this global platform. And it's just a long road, and I like it. It's exciting. But just know that there's those quick hits, like getting millions and millions of dollars and millions of users is not something you want to expect. Know that it's just a long road. Before we end here, I do want to mention, first of all, check out Founders Live. But one thing that that we're doing next Wednesday, it's 11 a.m. Pacific time. We're actually having a global gathering, and that promo code hackathon is a free ticket. So I'll make sure that you all have the link and the information. But please jump on. This is going to be a 4-hour event. It may or may not work for the time zone you're in, but we are going to have talks from our partners. You're going to learn a lot of stuff from that. I'll be making some talk. I'll make a talk as well, a keynote, and then we'll have some announcements. We're going to have our global pitch competition. So we have actually had from all of our cities. We did a little bit of a kind of tournament, what we call Founders Live Primetime. We had winners from various regions of the world. We have 5 founders coming from 4 different countries around the world that are going to have a competition to see who is the winner of Founders Live Fest 2020, the #1 startup in the world for Founders Live in 2020. Want you to be there. So make sure you get that information and then join Founders Live. Check it out. There's free options. I want you to all be a part of the growing network, because you're going to meet more people like me. You're going to meet more people that can help you in that process. So with that, I'll just kind of stop here. It's been nice to chat with you all. Would love to take some questions. On here, you can use YouTube as well. Make a comment, make a chat, and would love to chat and have some time for questions.
Okay, so I think there's a couple of questions in the chat. So Navni asked, why wouldn't you want to put your best foot forward rather than working on 100 different projects and hacking them one at a time?
So let's kind of repeat that. So maybe if you could ask it a slightly different way, or let's kind of go deeper into that question. So say it again.
So why wouldn't you want to put all your time and effort into one project and making sure it's really good, rather than working for a day on one project and trying to release it and get more testing done?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good question. I'll answer it this way. It's not that you wouldn't. You definitely want to put your best foot forwards. And going back to what I was illustrating earlier, you just want to. I guess the answer here is you want as many inputs as possible in the shortest amount of time. So with the projects you're working on, if you launch quickly and then start really testing, and what does testing mean? Testing just means that you push things out there and you're looking for responses, and you're looking for certain activities and responses, and you just are like, okay, that worked or it didn't. You want to do that as quick as possible and as frequent as possible. By doing those activities, those experiments, you're going to get the results, and the results will point you the directions that you need to go. So it definitely is putting your best foot forward, but rather than spending a year preparing to put your best foot forward, it's actually just an incremental process of placing that best foot forward over time and over days and weeks and months, rather than I've seen development teams actually, they just wait so long because perfection is the hope of building their product, and then they finally put it out there a year later. They could have been learning the entire year. That's what I'm trying to say. You learn every day and every week versus after a year, then you deploy that product. That makes sense.
Okay, that does make a lot more sense, because I always had that question as well when I used to talk to you. Now,
yeah.
Go ahead. So now we have a question from Shrestha. She said, how do we know which people to contact when you're a young entrepreneur? Because no one's going to take you seriously, probably, at that young age.
Yeah, so this is another good one, and this is, I guess I'm going to answer it a few ways. This is why things like Founders Live are so important. And Founders Live is just one of the many entrepreneurial platforms and networks out there. So I would encourage you to look at a lot of them. But, Founders Live brings other founders around you. And that means, just like as you are social networked on other social platforms, by getting around more entrepreneurs, they're going to know the people that you might want to be needing to contact. They might know someone that works at Google or Microsoft or I don't know, whatever company that you want to talk to. So by being a part of social platforms like Founders Live and having conversations with other entrepreneurs, you're going to end up finding those paths and really figuring out who to reach out to. And then secondly, this is why advisors or mentors are so important. And I would encourage you, especially at your age, to really look at like, okay, who is maybe 3, 4, 5 people that are maybe 10, 15 years older than me. And trust me, like we want to mentor and help others. Okay. So you reach out and you can start building what's called a board of advisors, or basically having, a 4 or 5 people around you that you talk to maybe once a month, and that they are very interested in your success, or at least wanting to help you. And they will also know maybe the next step with who to talk to on certain things. So when you say like, hey, we are looking to establish a partnership with such and such company, would you maybe know who might be at such and such company? And, they might, or they might know who to talk to that then might know that, right? So, things like Founders Live help bring other entrepreneurs and other advisors and mentors around you that will answer that exact question. But that's, another way to think about this is, if you feel like your age and being young, people aren't taking you seriously, and that is a fact, use us and use your mentors, and they know that that's what you're doing. Is like, hey, just so you know, I'm having trouble getting a hold of these people at this company. Could you help me with that? And that they will absolutely help you. So that's definitely what you want to do.
Okay, now we have a question from Anne. So she says that she's a part of a nonprofit robotics organization that has been around for a long time. Do you have any tips for bringing the spark back to new and existing members? Because eventually it just dies out after like decades.
Yeah. So, this is something that this is very close to me, and it's really important, which is, I would answer this saying, understand or start building in the core values of that company or that organization. And, with Founders Live, we have 4 specific core values. And so when you think, just to make sense for you all out there, when you're building something, you want to think about what's important to you and what's important to the company that you're forming, the organization. And you can determine certain words or statements that become really your foundational, like, core values. Like, these are the things that we care about. These are the things that become part of the brand. And by, even with an organization that's been around a while, by going back and saying, hey, let's pick like 5 things, 5 thoughts, 5 principles that are very meaningful to us, that are around the executive team of this organization, and you start to put that into the company and the organization, what happens is people start to want to be around that. For Founders Live, we have our core values, and I'm telling you, because we speak about them all the time, it becomes one of the main reasons why people are attracted to Founders Live and want to be a part of it. And then that becomes the glue and also the momentum that just starts to like bring people back. Activities start happening, events start happening, and people start talking about it. So I would encourage you to think about maybe infusing core values and a purpose. What's the purpose of this thing in general? Why are we doing this? And then you can start wrapping those into the activities, the events. And trust me, like, people will start coming back around because they're like, well, there's something special here. Why is there's something changing? What are they doing? And all of a sudden they're now interested.
So would you want to change the core values of the business to like something new, or would you want to keep them the same and just amplify that message?
Well, yeah, that's a decision for the organization and the executive team. So do we change it because it's, they've kind of gone a little old? Do we want to enhance that brand? Maybe. Do we want to keep them, but just much more vocalize them? Maybe that's it too, right? So, one thing, just like we're having this conversation right here, Founders Live is a live event, and we now we use this system. We use, we stream online, and even when it's an in-person event, we are talking about our core values every single event that happens. And I started that in the beginning, and I made that clear that if an event's happening in, in Zimbabwe in Africa, or if it's happening in Argentina, or if it's happening in, Seattle or Boston in the United States, we still talk about those core values. And so that means that on a daily and weekly basis, people are hearing about it and they're saying, there's something unique about this, and that's interesting. So no matter if it's creating new ones or really reviving the old ones, you just want to talk about it as much as possible and figure out ways to share that purpose and that message in every direction possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, so this is a question that I personally have. Which one do you think is more important, like business, technical, or networking skills? Because you can't have all three most of the time. So, like, which one should you focus on most if you want to improve something? When starting in the entrepreneur.
Well, you first want to ask yourself, what comes natural, and that's probably the one that you want to really lean into the most. And what are you more naturally technical? Okay, how can I drastically improve that, because I'm already naturally gifted in that. So that's number one, is follow that big time. That's going to lead you to much higher levels. But then, of course, you want to figure out, so it's you mentioned business and then networking, clearly, figuring out and experimenting with okay, how do I better network with people? Of course, you want to improve those as well, but I think that there's going to be one that you're really drawn to. I would say improve that as much as you can. And I'm going to answer it this way. There's a concept where hopefully I'm still here. But there's a concept that is actually out of 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, if you rate yourself on these, whether it's technical, business, networking, other skills, if you're rating yourself at an 8 or a 9 and you're man, I am great in this area, you still want to focus on that big time, because if you can go from 8 to a 9 or 9 to a 10, that could be a matter of hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, right? From the fact of, you might get into a college because of that. You might get a job at a high growth startup. You might start your own company. And so you can improve on those skills that you're already good at, right? And so I would encourage you to do that. But the others, you want to look at just research on how you can improve on those things, but I wouldn't put a ton of effort into that. But in terms of thinking about what is most important, well, obviously, this is going to go back to. I do want to bring back the. Let's go back. In terms of the slide that I was on when I said, here's the 3 things, I would encourage you to think about as a team. So if you bring the technical, then definitely team up with people. And this is be friends with them. This is maybe start a company with them. This is just surround yourself with people that have those other skill sets that you might not have.
Interesting. So I think his network was a little laggy. So give us 1 second and we should be right back. Oh, he's back. Hey.
I am back. I am sorry. I don't know. Speaking of technology, yeah. Hopefully you can still hear me. I'm sorry. My internet kind of went out a little bit, but are we still here? Are we good?
Oh yeah, we're all good. We're still good.
Yeah, how we doing? Are we still good, or what are your thoughts
here?
Good.
We're still live. Oh, so there's a couple of questions that just came in. So I think you're frozen.
Can you hear me? Are we good?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think your video is still bad. To turn your camera.
Yeah,
off,
just finishing.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there is a bit of a lag. I'm not really being able to hear you very well.
Oh, okay. So well, you can answer like answers. Thank you, but we have another question from Emma S. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but
All
she
right.
asks, where
Is
should?
this better? Can you hear me better, or are we? What's going on here?
Yeah, this is better. This is better.
Let's keep going. Let's try this. Hopefully it works. Are we? Yeah. Should we address this next question? Looking for mentorship.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Shoot. Okay. I'm gonna try to talk. Hopefully this will work. And if not, hey, the tech god. Yeah. Um, so addressing where you should look for mentorship, this kind of falls back into what I was saying earlier is, I think the big things are, find a network online, things like Founders Live that other entrepreneurs are around. There are other platforms, but with Founders Live, like we have people that are older than you, not so much, but older than you have gone forth and they've built things. Is a perfect place to find mentors and find people that are willing to turn around and help. And then, obviously your university, your school, your high school, just kind of spending time in that area and just like looking for individuals that might be a few steps ahead of you. I would suggest that as well. Kind of looking for those platforms. Um, and then also, there are applications out there now that are coming out. There's a couple that have pitched through Founders Live that actually are building mentorship platforms. They're actually their exact business is helping you find mentors aligned in ways that would work. So be on the lookout for platforms that help with mentorship. Look at things like Founders Live and other networks and social platforms that like bring people together. And I would say maybe lastly, as the world kind of gets back into a normal thing, start to really attend the events that like in-person hackathons or pitch events. That's where people gather, and that's where you're going to find the right people that will help you.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a thank you message from Anne that thank you for your advice.
Yeah, I don't know what if my connectivity is wrong or whatever. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much. Again, I don't know if there's obviously a technical connectivity issue, but I can stick around a while, or we can kind of just close this off. But hopefully it's been helpful.
I think we should have this last question and then we should probably close it. Is what is your biggest challenge in developing Founders Live and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I would say the biggest challenge is really in the end, it's like, just really finding how, I think, what we want when we started, it was like finding that repeatable process. That's probably a key thing is, so number one is repeatable process. And number two is, growth capital. That's always a challenge when you're coming out of the gate. Is just like, do we have enough money? Can we bring on a team? Can we, have a budget to expand and pay people? But like, first off is the repeatable process. So this goes back to the testing and, the ways of like, experimentation, testing, learning from that, and then, figuring out that repeatable process. And once we had a repeatable process, then we're able to then scale to all the cities around the world. But you have to have something that can be repeated. And then secondly, just access to capital and just funding the company. That's always a challenge. A lot of startups and, pretty much every startup I know of is always looking for money and capital. And so that's always going to be something that we're focused on. But yeah, we're overcoming those. And, there are things that, again, if you go back to that equation of iteration, learning, testing, keeping what works, just keep on that path and you guys will be great.
All right. I think that should be it. Thank you for coming to Hacktable, Nick. And I think all the hackers really appreciate you coming and taking your time out of your day.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was great to be here. I'm sorry that my internet connectivity wasn't better, but hey, I'll just say good luck, have fun, and make sure that they get the info. I'll send you information for Founders Live and for Live Fest, and I hope you all can attend next week. Thank you.
For sure, I'll let them know. All right, thank you. And for coming to this event, your guys' next letter in the 8-letter word is C. So right now we are at VALEC. Now let's see if you guys can guess the word. If not, you should attend a couple more events. All right, thank you, and happy hacking.